Hello, Roundtable fans. I'm Jennifer Eller, and welcome today. And with us, we have...
Did you hear Nick laughing in the background because you tried to come up with another intro? And you,
It's not working.
all I can hear is Nick in the background. Like, here she goes again. Here's something different.
Yeah, it's not working today.
It's okay.
But anyways, we're so glad you joined us today. So, with me is...
Don't forget Dan. I thought you already went through us already.
No. Oh. We are a hot mess.
It's good. That's what makes it good. It's like, okay, got it. Okay,
This
we're
is
ready.
Mike Hill here in the red shirt.
The red.
Yep, and then we have our producer today is Dan Smelser.
Big Dan, the OG.
And then our guest today is Alyssa Tobias.
Hey.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
All right, so what's one of your favorite hobbies?
Ooh, I like to work out and run a lot, so I do that to manage stress and clear my head.
Like run a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like you run marathons.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've run 4 half marathons.
Wow.
Yeah. I've cut
Have you
back
been
on.
injured from doing any of that?
Not horribly. Like every now and then my legs will hurt, but other than that, nothing crazy.
You don't have knee pain, none of that stuff.
No, not. Last year, right before my half marathon that I ran the Indy Mini last year. My knee started to hurt from running on the road, and it's angled, so you don't put weight on evenly, but nothing crazy. Nothing that I had to have surgery or anything.
Have you ran a marathon?
All the time.
Have you ever? What's the farthest you've ever ran?
Okay, well, I was like elementary school, maybe junior high.
Where you ran the strawberry or something? Did you have those things, races?
No, but there was a track thing, and I actually ran some in track. I did some of the relays and stuff like that.
And then
but
you gave it up in elementary.
I
You haven't, Jennifer, you haven't ran since elementary school? You surely jogged? Have you jogged? Sorry. I was just assuming, everybody kind of goes through their little spurts.
Where they jog at least a
Yeah,
little.
like you just, like I went out and jog a half mile. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Yeah. No,
Bad question.
I don't run.
Okay, walk. Like, are you a speed walker?
Oh, I guess it could be.
Yeah. So, okay. So you don't walk, but you run. Like, why's the farthest you've walked?
I don't know. I don't keep track.
You don't have a Apple Watch or anything?
No.
I'd be lost without my Apple Watch.
Nope. Don't want it.
You do too.
No, I don't.
Once you get one, you'll never
Okay,
go
we're
back.
talking about Alyssa. So,
Once you get your Apple Watch, Alyssa, will you ever go
No,
back?
you'll never
See?
go back.
Thank
I
you.
love
We
my
got it
watch.
right in there. It's the best thing ever.
It is.
so like, where all have you ran your half marathon?
So I ran in Columbus, Ohio, because I went to did my undergrad at Ohio Wesleyan. So I just finished playing college soccer and needed something to keep me going. So ran my first half marathon there. And then when I was in vet school, I ran one up in Michigan. And then I've done the Indy Mini twice.
Okay.
Last year I didn't plan on doing it. And then my sister-in-law was like, well, I'm going to do it. And I'm a very competitive person. Anybody that knows me, I'm like, well, if she's doing it, I have to do it. So we ran it kind of together. We ran it at the same time, but not at the same pace.
Yeah. That's
Would you
awesome.
do any of like the Spartans or Tough Mudders or any of that
I've thought
stuff?
about it. I want to do it, not like an Ironman, but like
Yeah.
a small triathlon. But
Yeah.
I'm not the strongest swimmer, so I'd have to train for that part of it.
Okay.
But like biking and running, I can do that. But there are some you kayak instead of swimming.
Oh, really? That'd be
I could
cool.
do that. Yeah.
I would always have that fear on the swimming part of it. It ain't a swimming pool.
No.
Like you can't see where you're swimming.
No, I'd
Like
never
they
do
swim in the
that.
goose poop out here. Like the whatever that place
yeah.
is. What's
Lake
the yeah?
Yeah.
Whew. I don't know how you keep on track.
And you've got all the people around you. That would be the other part. Would
Yeah.
be, yeah.
Yeah.
What if you get
I mean,
slow?
they're, like,
Somebody's
right
going to run
there.
you over,
Yeah.
drown you right there.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other hobbies, I like to garden in the summer. I've got a pretty big garden. My husband jokes that I love the garden more than him, which is not true, but I spend lots of hours out in the garden in the summer.
Wow.
And
Like
then-
what are you raising?
Oh, this year I was told I couldn't add more, but I've added more. So I'm doing
You're a rebel and
strawberries,
defiant.
strawberries and potatoes, tomatoes, cabbage, Brussels sprouts.
Wow. Have
Squash.
you've never done Brussels sprouts?
I did Brussels sprouts last
Did
year.
they work?
Yeah, they worked
They
really
did.
well. It was a giant plant.
Wow.
And then we can. My family's always done canning since my dad's always had a garden since we were little. So I always remember working in the garden with
Not
him.
your mom?
No, my dad's the gardener.
Wow. Okay.
He's a dentist, but he grew up on a farm, so we joke it takes him back to his roots. He can go play in the dirt at the end of the day. So he comes out and helps me with my garden, and me and him and my brother all garden together, and then we all can together as a family. And so it's fun.
You're ready for the zombie apocalypse.
We are ready for the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, we know where to go. Your house,
I've got stuff, yes.
Pam Heckber's house, and now Alyssa's house.
You won't die.
Huh?
You won't die now.
Listen, we'll just go back to the question. If you ran out of canned food, would you eat a dead person?
Oh,
That's a question for the round table. Come on. Is that not a good round table question? If I'm out of canned food, I think somebody's frozen out there in the snowdrift.
if my husband, who's a hunter, couldn't kill something and it was all I had for survival, maybe.
Yeah, I know you would. Like, you'd be good. You're a vet. You just slice off the good stuff.
We joke all the time. I'm like, zombie apocalypse, we're covered. Carter can hunt.
Yep.
My dad's a dentist. I'm a vet, so we've got the medical side covered.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got a whole zombie plan. We talk about this at work all the time.
Yeah, Carter might kill the person and then we eat him.
Yeah.
Except you can't eat a zombie, I don't think. I think they're infected. I think they're
Probably
infected.
make us a zombie.
They're infected.
I think. Like, if you eat the meat, you might get a stomach ache. Maybe.
They're like half rotting, so probably not good.
Yeah, probably not good meat.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie, Miss Congeniality. I can quote that
was
movie.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, I can quote it start to finish. It's such a dumb movie, but it's so
I
funny.
think I've seen it once.
I've never
Definitely
seen
a chick flick.
Is it? Okay.
You'd love
You
it.
and Carter doesn't. No.
Carter doesn't watch that one with me. No, that's a me.
Yeah.
Bad day, need something to cheer me up. That'll do it every time.
No.
Yeah.
So that's like a genre stuff. Do you like comedy?
I do like comedies. Yeah.
Rom-com.
Yeah, because Hitch is probably my second favorite, and they're very, very.
What is?
Hitch with who's in that one? Yes, Will Smith.
Dan.
Thank you.
Come
Thank
through,
you.
Dan. Dan the man.
Yes, that one's a
Dan's
good
movie
one.
watcher.
Oh, Dan could go on Jeopardy and win it all.
You think?
Oh, he's like an encyclopedia. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like Trivial Pursuit. If you get him in Trivial Pursuit, I bet he could win.
Wow.
See?
Wow.
Yeah, he's a wealth of useless knowledge. Is that not true, Dan? That's true. Yeah, like I remember Dan, we used to with the youth, like he bring up random things. Like, where do you think of that? Oh, I just know all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. And your favorite childhood memory?
Christmases growing up, my family's a big Christmas family, so that was the one day of the year we didn't have to get out of our pajamas. We could sleep on the couch on Christmas Day, like that night. So that's still to this day, Christmas means a lot to me and my family, just all being together. And then in the summers, just being outside. I swear we never wore shoes growing up. We were just barefoot outside, playing in the backyard, playing in the garden. Just being together as a family, I think, were my favorite childhood memories.
And are you carrying that on? Like, you guys big Christmas?
Oh yeah. Yep. We still every Christmas we get there, we open stockings, then we make a big breakfast, and then you pass out gifts in waves. So everybody opens gifts one at a time, so you can see what everybody got. But my grandma always loved Christmas, and so that kind of fed down to the rest of us. Her and my grandpa would come over on Christmas Eve, and she'd have a sleepover with me, and my grandpa would have a sleepover with my brother in his room, and then we'd get up. We couldn't go downstairs until my parents told us we were allowed to go downstairs. So we'd sit at the top of the steps and then come down and see what Santa brought us and just spend the whole day together. So we still spend most of the day, even though me and my brother are grown and both married, we still spend the majority of the day together.
Do you do your house with a lot of decorations? Mm-hmm. Do you?
Yeah.
So your lights everywhere?
Yeah.
Is Carter like that?
No.
Yeah.
No. No, absolutely not. No, when we started dating, I had a little Christmas tree from my apartment in Michigan, and I got a big tree for my house. So the little tree went to Carter's house, and I decorated his house the best I could. And then once we got married and I moved in, I told him, I said, I'm a Christmas person, so
get ready.
There's going to be Christmas decorations, and we're putting Christmas lights on the porch. And he dealt with it, but it's not his favorite.
Yeah. Is he like the Clark Griswold who will go out and cut in his woods and cut down a great big pine tree and pull
we
it
have
in?
a fake tree, but he has to carry it up from the base, or help me carry it up from the basement.
That's about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zach Heiner got one that was like Clark Griswold big. in their house this year. So
Yeah, he's not a big Christmas person, but I love Christmas. So I joke that I'm like Buddy the Elf and he's the Grinch, and it's just it's a great combination.
Do you got any Grinch signs that you put out around the house?
No, but I should get one.
Yeah, Sarah got a bunch when we were married. Sherry knew it. Sarah had to get broke into me hating Christmas. So the first year we're together, she puts this Grinch out on the front porch, and yep, that's perfect. That's the decorations I can get behind. Anyway.
Funny. Okay, so tell me about some struggles that you might have had in life, and you knew Jesus was the only way that you were going to get through those.
So kind of looking back, especially like thinking about coming on here, you kind of look back at your life and think about where God has worked. And I look back, and in the moment, I think sometimes it's hard to see where he's working, but then I look back and I'm like, okay, I see it now. Like I see why I'm a big planner. So I want everything to go the way I want it to go. And when that doesn't work, it kind of throws me for a loop. So like vet school, if you would have asked me, I would have gone, I was going to Purdue. That's where I was going to go. And I was dead set on it. And then God had other plans for me. So I ended up at Michigan State, and I was not happy about it. I joke that he drugged me there like kicking and screaming, because I was glad that I was going to vet school, but that's not what I had planned.
So how did that get like derailed?
So I ended up getting waitlisted at Purdue, and which was a huge, I think, hit to my pride just as much as anything, because I'd gotten into Michigan State early admission, and Purdue couldn't tell me like why they said no, and at the time that really hurt. But I look back and I'm like, I think that was God telling me that's not where I was supposed to go, even though that's not what I thought was going to work. So then I ended up at Michigan State because I got in early. They really wanted me there. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to go for it. I'm not taking a gap year because I didn't want to take time off. And I met one of my very best friends up there. I got a great education. I just, all in all, thoroughly enjoyed my 4 years up there. And I don't think professionally or as a person I'd be where I am now if I hadn't ended up there. And then I look back to things like past relationships, like boyfriends and people that you think you're going to spend forever with, and then you get your heart broken. But I look back at those and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. No offense to that person, but I'm so glad.
So glad it wasn't you. Just in case you're watching. So glad it wasn't you.
Because I look back and I'm like, that would have never worked. Like we thought that it was good, but it would have never worked. And the funny thing, so when I met my husband, my brother was the one who set us up. Mike knows this story, and the first thing my brother ever said to me was, so how do you feel about mullets? And I said, why? And I had called Tim to like talk about some guy that I'd been seeing that it wasn't going well, and he's like, well, I have somebody in mind for you, and I'm tired of you dating douchebags, was my brother's exact words.
I love this. I still remember you telling the story, and I'm like, that's the brother that everybody needs.
Yes,
right
my
there.
brother and I are very close, so he'll just tell me the way it is. And he's like, I'm tired of you dating douchebags, and I have somebody for you. I'm like, whatever. I'll go on one date. He's not really my type, but okay. And we went on our first date, and it actually ended up being the day that I signed my job contract at the clinic that I'm currently at. And I joke that God was probably laughing because I had just told my mom, I'm like, I'm signing this job contract. I'm coming back to my hometown. I'm going to be single the rest of my life. Like, I know all the guys here, and I just am not interested in anybody. And she kept saying, you know, every single person in this town and the surrounding towns. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, it's just not going to work. And I laugh because I'm like, I went on a 4-hour first date with Carter and then went and signed my job contract. And looking back, I'm like, okay, all right, God, I see it. Like, very funny. So there's those situations. And then just recently, so my husband and I got married in June. We decided we were going to start trying for children. And about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, well, about 2 months ago, we found out that we were expecting shortly after we got the news that it was probably not a viable pregnancy. And it ends up, I mean, it crushes you. You never think that the first time you find out you're going to be parents, that's how it's going to end. And I won't lie, like the first day after we got the news, I was a mess. Like, I went into work and I told the people at work, I'm like, I will tell you what's going on, but I can't right now. Like, I won't make it through the day if I speak the words right now. And I told them, and it is what it is. And I was just a mess that day. But I remember going to bed that night and praying, like, God, just please help me. And I woke up the next day, it was a Wednesday, and like with a sense of peace that I don't know where it came from. And I still, to this day, I'm like, there's no way I could have pulled myself together that much. And I remember thinking like, okay, I don't have to agree with this. I don't have to like this. I don't have to, like, I can be angry about this, but I have to accept it. Like one way or another, I have to accept it. And I had prayed, I'm like, God, at least I know you can change it all. Like if you want this to work, you can change it. But if you don't, like, use this story somehow. And ironically enough, you texted me the next day to come on here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea the story till I texted. She told me yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, just even about that pregnancy.
And so I was like, okay, even though this isn't what I had planned and it's not what I would have picked for us, I just pray that God uses that story somehow, because it was hard, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy to have to walk through that. But people kept telling me, like my friends, who some of them aren't believers, like, you've been so strong through this, like you've kept it together. And there's no way I could have done that myself. Like there's no way that strength just came from me to hold it all together. And not that I held it together all the time, because I definitely had my moments, which I think is normal to kind of break down. But people just kept saying, you're so strong. And I'm like, I don't think I am. And before that had happened, I had told a friend that I was expecting, and I was like, I'm just worried, because there was something from the beginning. I'm like, I just don't think that this is gonna, something told me this isn't gonna end well. And she's like, well, your faith is strong. Like if that happens, you'll be okay. And I remember thinking, but is it that strong? Like, I don't know. And I just talked to her a couple weeks ago, and I was like, once you're put to the fire, you see like, okay, maybe my faith was stronger than I thought it was. So
you never know until it's tested.
Yeah. And so most recently, that's probably the biggest situation I can think of, that I was like, there's no way I did it all by myself to make it through that. And even leading up to that, I think God had kind of prepared some things. So I started a small group probably about 6 months ago or so. And it started, probably about 9 months ago, and then kind of fell apart. Nobody was doing it. And my sister-in-law came in, and she was like, well, let's try this again. And we now have a group of probably 10 like amazing women. That
I heard the group's going awesome.
Yeah, it's going awesome now. It started a little rough, but it's going great now. We've got like anywhere between 10 and 12 women, and it's growing each time we meet. And I wasn't going to, my sister-in-law, she was like, there's a reason she's married to my brother, because she'll also tell you the way it is. And the beginning of like this was the Wednesday that I woke up and like felt a sense of peace. We had small group that night, and she was like, anybody have any prayer requests? And I kid you not, she's looking like this at me across the room. I'm like, are you serious? And so I tell everybody, but having that group there to walk with me through it made a world of difference. And these are girls that a year ago I would have probably never had that kind of relationship with. And so I look back, I'm like, okay, God was paving the way for us to walk through this and have that support system there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So have you always been a believer then? Did your family always go to church when you were a child? So
yeah.
I mean, when did you accept Jesus into your heart? Like, how old were you when you?
I was in high school when the first time I got baptized. But I've gone to church my whole life. Like I was born on a Monday, and I'm pretty sure my parents had me in church on that next Sunday. So ever since I was little, went to church and did youth group growing up, and then you go to college, and I was still a believer, but it's that like lukewarm, like you still want to have your college fun, but I was still involved with some Christian groups. But high school, I accepted Christ. I went to CIY, which is like a big church conference. And after that, got baptized. I was probably 16, maybe. There's definitely highs and lows since that point of like feeling really on fire, and then feeling like, I believe, but I don't really feel it.
Like I've always wondered in your field, because obviously it's like being a doctor, so it's very analytical, very science driven. And so a lot of people who are down that road struggle with the faith element, because faith is unexplainable.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever, like, is your brain, not to say you've questioned, but has your brain ever struggled through? Because the other thing that that I've always thought interesting about your story, and even when I did your wedding, like some of your greatest friends don't believe. And again, I mean, I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking there's a small town girl, goes to a big time school, lots of different belief systems in an analytical field, science driven field. But that's a test of like trying to keep your faith like a childlike faith.
Yeah.
And so I've always wondered, were there ever struggles? Were there ever
definitely.
questioning?
Like there's some things where you're like, that doesn't make sense. Like things that scientifically just you can't explain. But then there's also things like, this gets really nerdy, but you look at things like down to the cell and like enzymes and different things like that. If the temperature's off by like 1 degree, it doesn't work. And how when you look at like a human body or an animal's body, how perfectly everything is made and like how everything works together so perfectly to create it.
So it did the opposite for you.
I think there's a lot. There are times where I questioned it, but then I look at those things and I'm like, you can't tell me that we started from a single cell and just by chance that happened, because things are, and I've seen it go wrong in animals. Like when something starts not working or even a little thing is off, the whole organism fails. And so you see things like that. And I'm like, you can't tell me that there's not a God that does all of that, because to me, I just don't think that there's a way that from a cell you could get to what we are now and without a God creating it. So that's where I always come back to, and I could nerd out about it for a long time. And there's times where I end up seeing like different videos about it. I'm like, it's pretty amazing. And my whole family is very sciencey, so I think that that's helped me as well. So my dad's a dentist. My mom had a biology degree. My brother went to school for biology. My sister-in-law and my husband both think we're all nerds because we'll sit around at family dinner and talk about ridiculous things. And she's like, why? Like, why are we talking about this? But I think that helped me a lot too, because my parents always went to church. And I mean, I remember times growing up where you get involved in sports and like church, I think, takes a back seat naturally sometimes, but they always were big about like making sure we went to church and talking about their faith, and seeing them be able to have a science background and me growing up that way has been very helpful too.
And it wasn't that hard having a group of friends that didn't believe?
No. So I'm very lucky in the fact that my friend group is very, very diverse, but everybody just kind of accepts what the other people believe.
Awesome.
So I don't feel like they ever questioned they knew what I believed from basically the moment I met them. I met them all in college. So we were like 18 years old, just went off to school, trying to figure life out. We all played soccer together. So we all got kind of forced to be friends, and they're still some of my greatest friends, and they were all at my wedding. But they all, like, everybody has a different backstory. We probably span from some of the most liberal people to some, like, I'm fairly conservative just in beliefs, and people that don't believe in God at all, people that kind of do, but not really. And and we all just kind of said, you know what, like, I might not understand it, but that's what you believe, and I'm not going to try to change that about you. And I'm lucky that we all said, but that's what makes you you. And they all just support it. They've always supported me, and I've always supported them, and just kind of loved them through all of it. And so, like, when you talk about you have to love the person first, that always resonates with me, because a couple of my friends had really bad experiences growing up with the church, that people tried to tell them like what they were doing was wrong, or how they were living was wrong, but they didn't know them at all. They didn't know their heart. And so that's where I'm very passionate about loving the person. And my job, I know I work with animals, but animals mean a lot to people, and their pets are their kids sometimes. And
they like them more than their kids.
Oh,
sometimes.
They do. Yeah. I've had kids
Let's
come
be
in.
honest.
Yeah, they do. They do. And I have found like I like the animals, but I love the people that come through, and getting to like hear their stories and love on them. And even I tell myself all the time, I might be the only person that that listens to them today. And not that my patience is always there. There's many days when I'm driving into work, I have to tell myself like, have patience. I know you're busy, but have patience, and it's not about you. And I tell myself that a lot. Like, it may just be a simple visit for you, but this could mean the world to them. Or things like when we have to say goodbye to a pet in a euthanasia, like we may do, unfortunately, 5 or 6 in a day. And so to us, that might just be another procedure, but to them, that means the world. So stopping and seeing the person is something that I feel very passionate about in my field and just in life in general, is loving the person.
Right. Because I think that's part of what fascinated me when we were doing marriage counseling and just talking through the whole process is that there are a lot of times where people just, if your friend's not a believer, then they can't be your friend, you know, and or if they're my friend, every time I see them, I'm going to try to change them. And I love the approach that, listen, love, time changes things, not words and, you know, telling them everything they're doing is wrong. So I always thought that was fascinating, again, the way that you've approached your friends, because they were fun people. We sat with some at at the reception. And I mean, it's the crazy thing is I think sometimes people look at, well, if they're not Christians, they're villains, but they're not. They're good people, and, you know, and they have hearts just like all of us. And I think that's, sometimes we alienate instead of just like, oh, I mean, they are people who need loved just like everybody else.
Yeah. And I've had people say, well, they don't believe this, like not about my friends, but just in general in your own conversations. Well, they don't believe like I do, so I can't be friends with them. And I'm like, but that's not how the world works. And the way I look at it is we're all different, and God made us all different, and you have to love people because of it. And that's kind of the approach I take, is just love on them. And hopefully they know what I believe and what I stand for. And I pray all the time that I hope I live different enough that they can see that and see there's something different and say, I want that. But it's not my job to change them.
Right.
Nope. You're living out the 2 greatest commandments. Love God and love people.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we do. That's what we do. Yeah.
I saw you looking at your paper. Did you have?
She talked about everything.
Oh, I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you because I thought you keep looking over there. And I'm like, I mean, you got a list of stuff over there.
I guess the only thing I was thinking of is like, because you're newly married.
Yeah.
You know, and so what does that look like? And how are you living out your faith with your husband? I mean, what?
Yeah, so my husband, when we met, he grew up Catholic, but he didn't really go to church. And I remember telling him, like, this is going to work. You're going to give me one Sunday a month was my stipulation. First time we came, he's like, I'm going to catch on fire. I'm going to walk into church and I'm going to catch on fire. I'm like, Carter, that's not how it works. But okay, like if that's what you think, just come on, let's go in there. And now he comes every Sunday and he works on his faith, but I think marriage teaches you a whole other side of appreciating people for who they are and grace. And so kind of some backstory with us. So Carter is 6 years older than me. He's lived on his own for 8 years. Through school, I've lived on my own for 8 years. So we both were very established in how we do everything, to say the least. Mike laughs because he heard all of this.
I was thinking back to him now. I haven't thought about it in a while, but now that you brought it up, it's so funny. I forgot all about that.
We're very established, and like, this is how we do things. And so trying to mesh that together is definitely a lesson in grace and love, because it's not always easy. I'll be the first to admit, people laugh about me because I don't sugarcoat things. I'll just be honest. And I'm like, we've been married almost a year, but marriage is not easy. And I know we're just getting started, and there's nobody else I would rather walk that path with than him, but that doesn't mean that it's always easy. And I think it takes grace on both of our parts on a daily basis. Like if somebody's grouchy or tired and they snap at you, you end up having to have a short memory and say, okay, like, it is what it is, and I forgive you, and you know their heart as a person. And I think that learning to come together as two very different people with we'd been so used to doing it all on our own. And it's still a struggle for us sometimes, because he's used to doing things his way on his time whenever he wants to do it. I'm used to doing things on my time when I want to do it, and trying to figure that out together. It's a challenge, but it's fun. I do love being married.
Yeah, put that in at the end. Carter, just in case you're watching.
Yeah.
I do love being married to you. Yeah, but I think the first year is always the most challenging. I've always said that. I think the first year of Didn't you think your first year of marriage was?
No.
What? Dan?
Nope.
Yeah, I would say first year is probably the toughest.
Yeah.
I've heard very mixed reviews. There's some people that say the first year is the easiest, but a lot of people say the first year's the hardest too.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Well, I just thought it was like, I thought I knew way more than I knew. That was what I mean, Sharon and I had dated for how many years? Like, you just assume you know everything. And then I find out she didn't even know how to cook. How did that happen? How did that happen? How are you in a relationship?
Oh, you find things out that you never thought you would find.
No,
Like,
I know.
we didn't live together until probably a few months before we got married. And like I said, I'd been living on my own. So I had my way. He had his way. And little things like how you do laundry. Who thought that laundry would be such a sticking point? But it can be. I'd come home and he'd have all of his laundry in the washer. Mine would still be upstairs in the laundry basket. I'm like, wait a sec. Do you realize there's another person that lives in this house now, don't you? And he's like, oh yeah, there is laundry upstairs. I'm like, yes, there is.
That is
So there's been times we do way more laundry in a week than two people ever should because we just could not get on the same laundry schedule. And just he used to only sleep on the couch. He works third shifts, which also adds to the fun. And so he used to always sleep on the couch. He never slept in bed until I lived there. And I told him, you cannot sleep on the couch. I'm coming home from work. Like, I need to be able to do things. And he sleeps like a rock. Like, you could go up and probably shake him. I actually have shook him to try to wake him up. And he's out. He's out. When he's out, he's out. And he's like, well, you're not going to wake me up. I said, that's not the point. And, but yeah, little things like that. And you know it, like they tell you these things, but when you live together, there's a lot of things you learn about one another, for sure.
How did you end up at Life? I don't remember what you said. Like, how did you end up coming to Life
So
Church?
my family used to go to another church in the Wabash area, and they went through a big leadership transition. The elders ended up firing the pastor without talking to the congregation kind of thing. And it was a pastor that everybody really loved. And I was like, okay, we can still give it a chance. And then I ended up talking to a few elders about like their decision. They were willing to talk to anybody. And I remember telling them, because they said they wanted more diversity in the church. And I was honest with them. And I said, well, if you want more diversity, then maybe you need a leadership team that's not all 50-year-old white men. And
yes. That's the way to say it.
yeah, they didn't particularly love that statement, I don't think.
It's funny.
Yeah, I did. I told them on the phone that, and they were like, well, and I said, what about some younger men or what about some women? And the last straw for me was they told me that women were not allowed to be in a position of leadership if it meant that they were over a man. And I really struggled with that one because there's times in the Bible that women were in positions of leadership. And me personally, like, I'm in a position of leadership I've always been a leader. My entire life, I've always just been that person that wants to step up to the plate and get things done. And in my job, like, I'm essentially the boss of a bunch of people. And in my head, I'm like, but God wouldn't have made me the way he made me if he didn't want me to be a leader. Like, he gave me this personality, he gave me these traits that just didn't sit right with me. And I talked to a few of them, and that's what they just kept saying is that, like, well, you can lead over other women, but if you have to lead over a man, that's not okay. And
let's talk about that. Because what does that even mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
Jennifer, what's that mean?
Well, the way we see it is like a woman cannot lead from the front and be a lead pastor.
A lead pastor.
A lead pastor.
So from a description of saying a woman pastor, that would be the describing of leading a man over a man.
Yes. So, I mean, we have positions here at the church. I mean, there's a lot of us women, and we lead our teams and stuff like that.
A lot of women lead a lot of everything at Life Church.
So we see that women have very great gifts too.
But see, that's the part that I've always because that can get very dicey on how you decide how that works. Because again, they're going back into scripture and they're saying, well, it says in scripture that a woman should never lead a man, right? So does that mean a woman can never hold a leadership position in a church? Because eventually you're going to be over a man, right?
Yeah, because we say no women elders and no lead pastors women. But other than that, women can lead all day long.
Yeah.
Right.
And we do it well. So
yes.
Kudos to you, Alyssa.
Yes.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it just can get so odd when you make blanket statements like
and
that.
they just basically gave me a blanket statement. And
Yes.
I'd been on the fence about going somewhere else anyway, and because I wasn't really, didn't feel like I belonged there anymore, and just was feeling not at home, even though I'd gone there ever since I was probably in elementary school. But there was just something that it just wasn't speaking to me anymore. And then that statement was made, and I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to find somewhere, not that, and it's still a fantastic church, and I wouldn't say anything wrong about them, and I hope it doesn't come off that way. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
And so we had good friends that were coming here. Dylan Brown, he's basically like a second brother to me. He was coming here. And so mom and dad, I was up in Michigan still. Mom and dad came here, and they were like, we really like it. And so then I was home for a week, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with you guys. And then I just never left, and just really loved a lot of the philosophies, like that the church is not just a building that's used on Sunday, like it's open to the community. And to me, like, and loving on people and being here for the community really spoke to me, and a lot of kind of the ideals that Life Church is built upon. And then everybody's passion for, people call them the lost generation, but like people closer to my age, like you went through college and they walked away from faith, because that's the generation I'm in, and my heart bleeds for those people too, because the number of people, like even kids I went to high school with, that went to youth group with my whole life, and they walked away. I've got a good friend, he completely walked away, cut all ties with his family. He's, I think, in Chicago right now. But like, he won't even talk to me anymore. He's walked away. He, like, not, this sounds weird, but he even had like a Christian tattoo on his side and everything, and just completely went the other way. And I still pray for him every day that he'll come back, but it happens way more than people want to think it does. That
well, here's something too that so when I found out you were doing a small group, like, so one of the things that we talk about at Life all the time is that, like, being known, like if you could try to figure out, like if you could boil everything down, if the church, if we could be known and know people, like if you just be in relationship, a lot of things would go right. But too many times church becomes, you just come and you go and you come and you go and you're never really known. So you would have every excuse in the world to not be known.
Yeah.
So you're busy, newly married, younger generation, 1,000 things going on, which is, for some people, that's why, hey, I just come in and I come out. What spurred you on? Because now, again, I just heard this. I mean, I hadn't heard it from you. I just heard it from people that, like, your small group is going really well, and that has been wonderful for a lot of women that are involved in it. And so what spurred you to say, regardless that I'm busy all the time, I'm newly married, 1,000 things going on, what moved you to the place of saying, you know what, I want to do something?
Yeah. I think selfishly, I was at a point where I was feeling very lonely too. And I was like, this isn't, and I'm one, like when I get upset, I'll isolate. Like I'm never going to, I don't usually show my emotions in front of people. I want to do it all by myself. And I was at a point where I'm like, I just can't, I'm supposed to do this with other people. And I talked to my sister-in-law, and I are very close, and we'd kind of talked about it. And she's one, like the growth I've seen in her in the last 6 months has been absolutely amazing. And I'm like, you know what, let's give it a shot. Like I'd been part of a small group, but it was women that were quite a bit older than me. And while I loved it, it just didn't connect as well.
Right.
And loved all the women that were there, but I'm like, I'm not getting as much out of it, because these aren't people that are walking the same thing I'm walking right now.
Right.
And so I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I fought it for a while, because I felt like God was calling me to do it. And I'm like, no, that's way out of my comfort zone. Like I like to go to church and come home. And if somebody else started a small group, I'll join, but I'm not going to be the one to take that leap. And it just kept coming up and kept coming up in my head. And I think it was one of your sermons. You're like, if it keeps coming up, it's probably God telling you should probably do this. And I'm like, fine. I'm like, okay, I guess we'll do this. We'll see how it goes. And it was discouraging a little bit, because I had a couple girls that we were meeting with, and then we decided to make it. I said, I feel like we need to open this up to more people. And they just didn't feel like that's where God was calling them. And I'm like, that's fair enough. But then that meant that it was just me. And I'm like, okay, well, it's just me now. And I met with Taylor, and I said, oh, we're gonna try and see how this goes. And we invited Marley, is my sister-in-law. She invited a lot of people. We had a couple girls from church that and kudos to them because I had no idea who they were. They had no idea who I was, and they just joined the group. And the amount of courage that takes is a lot.
My point was the whole thing is a testimony to what we pray for every day.
Yeah.
One, for somebody to hear, which you did, for somebody to answer, which you did. And honestly, the third thing, this is the point of where I think a lot of people get stuck, and not to give up. A lot of people hear, a lot of people answer, and a lot of people give up. Because it is, as soon as you take that first step, usually discouragement is the next step, right? Because something usually happens where Satan gets involved, stupid things happen, randomness happens, and you're like, I finally got the courage and I did it and I have the faith. And then he tries to rip it down by something not working. And so the courage to push through, you know, to keep going. And then for other people in the church to say, you know what, part of the vision of changing the world is being known. And so even if it means walking into a group of people that I don't know from here, and now you're a group that could now pray for you through a low time in your life.
Yeah. And it's been amazing. The group of girls, like there's girls that I knew, like one of the girls I played high school basketball with. And we just talked about this. I was like, I would have never thought that I'd be walking 10 years later down this path with her, but here we are. And there's another girl in the group that's been struggling with fertility issues, and there's a girl that's expecting her first child. Paige Dyson. They're due in this summer sometime or fall, and so we kind of get the whole gamut of everybody. But and we've got a couple that have kids, and it's just been amazing, and how we've all kind of pushed each other. Most of our group is now involved with either Life Kids or Life Students in some way, because Sydney Mize came in and she's like, you know, they're really struggling to find people to help. And I think individually, none of us would have done it. And we're all kind of sitting around and somebody's like, I'm going to do it. I'm taking my phone out. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to do it. And then somebody else is like, okay, I'm doing it now too. And then over the next few weeks, like everyone was like, okay, well, if they're doing it, I'm going to do it. And through lots of conversation of us talking about how we're selfish with our time, that's been a big conversation among our group, and seeing like, okay, why does 3 hours a month seem like so much? It's really nothing. And so it's been, the way we've pushed each other has been really amazing. And it's been a blessing that I never saw coming. Like you think a small group, you're going to get together and you're going to talk a little bit and we might get to know each other, but maybe it'll be really awkward. And it's awkward the first couple weeks because nobody really knows each other that well, but everybody's been amazing, like pushing each other in ways that, and just lovingly holding each other accountable to things. And it's a great group of girls, definitely great group.
Yeah. And I mean, it just gives me hope, you know, because, you know, I hear those stories, and then like the men's group at TADS, a lot of the young guys are husbands of, you know, that go to that. And I'm thinking someday they're probably going to do the same thing, split off and do something as young men and be able to do it. But I mean, they come every single week. They're breaking the cycle, right? That's the thing that I think is so cool, is they're breaking the cycle of saying, I'm selfishly going to live. Not that that's what you got.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
But you know what I mean?
You get so focused on your own life and what you've got going on that you don't lift your head up and look at other things.
Right. So I've been super impressed to listen to those guys talk, to listen to how this group's going, to see, because I had heard that you guys had talked about it, and then I see the trickling in of people coming in and meeting with the staff and getting volunteer, and I'm like, you know, sometimes you pinch yourself because these are all the things 20 years ago we prayed for, you know, and they're like, can that really happen? Like, can you ever get to a place where it's a church where God's just moving people in amazing ways and it's diverse, right? Because I told a guy today, it's interesting because you walk into Life Church and there's people in walkers, and there are people, you know, I said this, there's a group of young high school girls from Wabash that come by themselves without their parents every single week. And I'm like, you would have never thought those things were possible. Like you would never think that's the way that it could go. And these stories of like, I took one step and look what God has done a year later it gives you hope that
It does.
that the church can work and that people are good and, and that great things can come.
And I think it gives you like power to go forward, because even when you hit a hard spot, you look back and you're like, okay, but God did this then. Like, he is faithful. I might just not see him right now because it's not the way I expected it. Or that's personally for me, when I hit a hard spot, I can look back and say, okay, like I might not get this situation, but I can look back and say that God moved to put me where I am now. And so even if I don't like it, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. And God's dragged me places kicking and screaming, and I've fought him every step of the way a few times, but we ended up where I was supposed to be. And I think the small group's a big testimony to that. And
I think that's awesome that you figured this out. I mean, to me, at a young age, because it's like, that's something that God keeps showing me, you know, and the older I get and the more that I walk this journey to see all the ways that God has been in my life and continues to be, so.
Go ahead. You can cry.
I know.
We're not emotional, but you go ahead.
But it's so good. It's so good to walk through those tough times to see God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, gosh, you're gonna see amazing things because you're seeing it now.
Yeah.
You're recognizing it now and what God can do in your life. So I wish I would have known that when I was.
Well, that's what we're talking about, the
30.
lost generation. I mean, probably should call it something else. But
Yeah.
I don't know what else
I don't know what else to call
But that
it.
is like that right there. You start changing that trajectory at a small level,
sure.
it is going to turn into a wildfire. I mean, you think about even like the 1835 ministry that just got started, and how many people are attending that, young kids that are just like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is what's so cool. So what I love about you is, you know what? Oops. God said do something. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
I might hesitate. I might, step back but you know what? I'm just going to try. Nobody's forcing me. I'm just going to do it. Well, the same with the 1835. They're like, you know what? We need to do something. So we're just going to get together and we're going to put a team of people together, and we're just going to, we don't know what we're doing, but at least we're going to start with something.
Because we've talked about that for a long time with this generation, and nothing's really ever happened.
But it's always been the principle that we've always said as a church. We're never going to start something until somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
And we prayed about it for years and years and years and years. And we could have made it happen, but I think this is where it's cool. When people just step up and say, you know what, I'm just going to do something and I'm going to try something. And I think that's where you see God really get the glory because... And that's the stuff that sticks forever.
Yeah. And it took I won't lie, it took a long time for me to get there. Like probably when I all through going to school, like all through college and vet school, I went to church, but I wasn't doing anything with it. And I don't know, the last probably year of my life or so, I don't know what has changed, but God's just worked and said, okay, you need to do something. And I feel like I just keep moving forward, and I've definitely had those periods where I'm like, I believe, but that's what I'm just gonna go to church and maybe I'll do a devotional here or there. And I still struggle sometimes making time on a daily basis to do devotionals, but I'm trying to do better, and I feel like I have of saying, okay, this is where you're calling me, I'm gonna do it. Yeah. And it may work, it may not, but
and remember, don't be. I think this is the thing people forget is don't be too hard on yourself from this standpoint. As I hear people say all the time, I do my devotions every single morning, and I wake up and I do my devotions, and I said, and what are you doing? Well, I'm not doing anything. I'm just doing my devotions. I'm like, what?
They're empty words then.
What good is that?
Yeah.
And then I hear people that are out there doing it, and they're in the mix, and they're like, well, sometimes I struggle. I'm like, listen, if I'm standing up there, I'm not God, but if I'm God, I'm up there get out and do. That's devotion. That's devotions. Devotion's is doing.
Yeah, having the group with me, all of us, I can definitely say it's a lot easier when you've got that group with you. Trying to do it by yourself, it's so easy you're on fire for a little bit and then you don't have anybody there to kind of keep pushing you forward, and you're like, okay, well, I tried and that's that. But having a group to keep pushing you has been huge. And I'm lucky my mom and I are very close, so she's always been one to push me, and we're very, very close. Like I talk to her, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but like 4 times a day, even though way more than I should. I call her all the time. Carter will be like,
go, Mom.
Yeah, Carter's like, who are you talking to? Is it your mom again? Yeah, it's my mom again. But she's always pushed me. And so you've got that, but then getting a group of girls my own age, and the fact that one of them's my own sister-in-law has been, it's fantastic. And she's the first to admit, her and I have had, like, when her and my brother first got married, things were a little rocky between us for a little bit, because I think sister-in-law relationships can be interesting sometimes, and women relationships, if we're being honest, can be interesting sometimes.
Amen. Amen. Come on. Somebody, Dan's back there like.
Because we're persnickety.
Huh?
Remember that? We're
Persnickety.
persnickety. Remember that?
You guys are something. I don't know what that. I don't know if that's the right word, but
but the fact that she's in that group now and we're walking through life together, and she sent me a text one day after small group, and she's like, I just want to thank you for like getting this together. It's made such a big difference. And I told her, I was like, well, thank you for, like, she's probably the other driving person that's really helped this thing go forward. She's just a little more in the background. And
so we need to bring her on the podcast.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Do that.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, Marley's fantastic. And then if you want somebody to tell you the way it is, bring Drake on, because he won't hold back
Give me
at
the
all.
names. I have a list.
That's what we need, some controversy.
Oh,
Get Drake
Drake will
and
give you
Dylan
some-
together, both.
Okay.
Oh, man, we could get some people riled
Oh, you
up.
can get my brother fired up easily. So
Yes.
Okay, I'll contact him tomorrow.
So we're towards the end. So
Okay.
if you could give words of wisdom to a younger generation, what would be, from where you are today, what would be words of wisdom that you would give them?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, don't get stuck where you're at, and learn from me, and don't paint, because I always had this picture of exactly how I thought my life was going to work out, and these are the steps I was going to take, and my life has taken, I mean, it's similar to what I thought, but there's parts of it and ways that I got there that I'd never thought that that's how I would get there, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I know that that was a God thing, even though I fought it. And to just, not saying that plans are a wrong thing, but don't get so stuck in your plans that you can't look up and see what's going on around you. And
Have plans, but be flexible.
yeah, be flexible and allow God to give you some interruptions every now and then, and don't get so focused on your plans that you can't see the people around you. Because I think that's one of the things I've learned the most, is like the people in your life are the most important thing that's ever going to be in your life, and everything else will come and go, but the people are what matters. Your job will come and go. You might change churches, but people and God will always be there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so again, I want to reiterate what I already said is thank you. Like, we're super proud of you. I'm it's an honor because I get to be a part of your life, be able to do your marriage counseling and then to see, guys in your first year of marriage, but not just your first year of marriage, and trying to figure out how to change culture, right? Like doing stuff and stepping into that place. And so I love it that I get to watch, to be a part of. I love it that, I get to hear, and it wasn't directly from you. It wasn't you coming back saying, oh my gosh, God is doing amazing things. You hear it from people that because you took a step, right? And I think that's the key. And this is what we should all learn. We don't have the answers, but because we took a step, because we did something, because we made ourselves available, God can do some pretty amazing things. And so thank you for that. And thank you for, everything that you've meant to the people of Life Church, and being at Life Church. It's a great, for the time having you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when this comes out, make sure that you like, share, or comment, because it'll come out on Facebook. So if you see it that way, it'll get on other people's feed. You guys are second service, right?
We're first service.
Are you really?
I don't know how I get up and get here that early, but
I don't either. Like, I was for sure that you guys came to second service.
Yeah. Yep, we're first service.
Okay. So if you are listening, we always tell people, if you listen, you should probably go on our YouTube and watch, because this has been amazing. Like, the church has grown, so not everybody knows everybody like it used to be. And so it is fun if you're listening, because we always encourage people, like, if you want to get to know people at Life Church, one of the greatest ways to do it is listen to the podcast, because a lot of people that are on are from the, you know, and have an opportunity. And there have been people who have listened, went on and watched and been like, oh, face with a name, came up and said hi on a Sunday morning. And so although Alyssa might like it, Carter won't like it when you come up and be like, hey, Carter, what's up?
No, he's pretty social, ironically
know, I'm
enough.
just
He's pretty
kidding.
social, but he laughs.
He's really social.
He is very social,
Yeah.
very social.
He's a great guy.
He's fantastic.
Down to earth, great hunter.
Yes.
Just killed his turkey.
Yeah, just killed a turkey yesterday.
Yeah.
Lovely.
He's
Yeah.
a down to earth, salt of the earth guy.
Yes, he is. Yes,
Yeah.
he is.
So make sure you come up and say hi.
And if anybody needs to talk about anything or wants to join my small group, let me know. But I hope people know, like, I love talking to people. So if you need anything or I relate with you in any way, just come talk to me.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.